23, I'm on 10 again.
What's up, guys? This is EO Speeds back again with another video, and of course it's going to be another LeBron James topic video discussion. And in this one I wanted to talk about how we're back again in the sports media narrative where another so-called LeBron James fanboy in the media has decided that they want to throw their hat into discussion and put out a narrative that LeBron James has faced tougher obstacles than Michael Jordan in terms of competition, what he had to go through, circumstances, etc., et al. And this is from one of LeBron James' close friends' relationship with, I think, Maverick Carter, or one of his dude boys that's working. They call them the Four Horsemen, whatever. So yeah, he made that comment the other day, and of course the sports media narrative ran wild with that because the sports news is kind of slow right now. The NFL season just finished. Tom Brady retired. The Rams won the Super Bowl, so now we're about to head to All-Star break, and they need some fodder to talk about for this week and the next week moving forward. So was nothing best to talk about than the old LeBron James versus Michael Jordan comparison topics. So again, I was watching all the other sports shows, Undisputed, First Take, etc., and it's the same old usual LeBron James fanboys trying to make a case that LeBron James had a tougher road than Michael Jordan ever did. Like Michael Jordan faced scrubs all his life throughout his career, and LeBron James just faced top-notch competition. Now, granted, I don't want to take away from LeBron James' competition and say that he had faced them like he did. He faced all-time great teams. That's why he has 6 NBA losses. But LeBron James, Michael Jordan didn't face any bad teams as well. By the time Michael Jordan got to the NBA Finals, he faced 50-plus win teams almost every year outside of the 2 years that MJ had retired. But nonetheless, it's clearly obvious that LeBron James has faced tougher competition than LeBron James. Now, do you want to argue the finals teams that LeBron James faced? Yeah, you could make an argument that MJ didn't face the finals teams that LeBron James had to face. But again, those finals teams, but outside of the San Antonio Spurs and the Dallas Mavericks, those were LeBron James doing when he started that Big Three era, aka the player movement era, where they try to clean it up. They call it the player movement era, but it's really the Big Three era where they stack teams on top of teams, and LeBron James was going up against a team that was just stacked better than him, and he ended up losing. But when it comes to Michael Jordan was facing 50-plus win teams in the finals, and he was facing a top-notch star. The talent was more spread out during that era in the 90s. But again, the tougher road Michael Jordan faced to get to the finals was way more tougher than LeBron James going to the NBA Finals. LeBron James had red roses. It was easy for LeBron James to get to the NBA Finals, and that's why he went there so much times, and that's why he had his ass kicked in the finals by the time he even got there. By the time Michael Jordan went through murder's row to get to the NBA title, he was battle-tested and ready to face any type of competition that they threw his way once he made it to the NBA Finals. He faced multiple Hall of Famers, and you can only say he had like maybe 2 or 3 stars on his team all the time. And I could say that's Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. And I wouldn't even count Dennis Rodman because Dennis Rodman was way older than that. Granted, he won a Defensive Player of the Year, but he did not win Defensive Player of the Year with the Chicago Bulls. He was a great defensive player, but I wouldn't consider him a star at that point. So really, it was just the first three. Pete was with, you could say, Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen, and then you could say it was with Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen. So Michael Jordan didn't really play with that much All-Stars during his tenure with the Bulls. But if you go with LeBron James, he played with multiple All-Stars during his tenure there with Miami, going back to Cleveland, and currently right now with the Los Angeles Lakers, from Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Then you go to Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and right now he's playing with Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook. And I could go over the other past All-Stars, but I'm not going to get into that. But the point I wanted to make was that LeBron James has had an easier road to the finals, and he still lost, even though he has stacked teams throughout his career. And Michael Jordan had a tougher competition and less help than LeBron James. So this whole tougher competition thing is nonsensical and BS. But of course, they wanted to take it outside of sports, because whenever LeBron James fanboys like to argue about LeBron James' circumstances and how he got to where he is, you have to try to take it outside of basketball. And they say, oh, he grew up from a single mother and he was destitute, he was staying in his room, blah, blah, this BS. Don't care about that. I care about the sport of basketball. What did you do in the sport of basketball? Did you win the game? That's all that matters. I don't care about none of that, all that stuff. Granted, was his youth a little dicey at the time? Yes, and that's unfortunate to hear. But again, all that is done and over right now. He's succeeded past those circumstances, and he's in a much place than he is right now, to where he does that, where he has to deal with that no more. So I don't care about that. All that other ancillary stuff where, oh, Michael Jordan went to college, he was able to play with D. Smith, and he had parents, but that's not Michael Jordan's fault. That has nothing to do with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was raised in a 2-parent household with a mom and dad, was able to go to school, able to play college ball, able to get drafted. This guy played 3 years at NBA and college, and was thinking about playing a fourth. He won an NCAA championship, something LeBron James had never done. Now, granted, LeBron James could have went to college, but for financial circumstances, he ended up going to the league. Nothing wrong with that, but don't put that as something to exalt LeBron James and like lower Michael Jordan. Because if Michael Jordan had played 2 more or less years and went to the league, he probably would have stacked up more points and more assists and probably got a few accolades along the way. But still, Michael Jordan's legacy is set in stone as the greatest NBA player for right now, for the foreseeable future, and I don't see nobody dethroning him, and especially it's not going to be LeBron James. I don't care what nobody says. A guy who has 6 NBA losses on his shoulders can never be seen as the greatest NBA player ever. It can't, no way. And then on top of that, you see someone like him have multiple meltdowns in the finals, when we could argue that the 2011 finals, that could be the biggest meltdown of any superstar ever in the sport. That series alone is why LeBron James will never be the greatest NBA player of all time. I don't care what he does. For me, he has to at least get 6 titles for it to be even a discussion. But right now, it's just a failed attempt at LeBron James fanboys in the media to try to prop up a narrative to try to get not just current people, but the younger viewers to say that LeBron James is the greatest of all time. Because most people never saw Michael Jordan play in his prime. They just watch highlights and they just think that Michael Jordan was playing against scrawny, unathletic white boys and plumbers and mailman and the milkman. That's what they think Michael Jordan competition was, but they don't understand how the game was way different back then. The rules were different back then, or how they had to guard Michael Jordan. They were even playing regular style basketball. They were playing football, basketball, where you could get more physical. They were hand checking, etc. The game was a lot more tougher and physical, and that's why the scores on those games were a lot more lower, because the game was more physical. And despite even the game being tougher and physical back then, Michael Jordan was still scoring above 50% in field goal percentage for a shooting guard, which is really good. So again, Maverick Carter, whoever LeBron James fanboys in the media that's made that nonsensical narrative story, yo, keep that BS to yourself. I understand LeBron James got you on payroll to say that, but you know, deep down, you know the truth. Michael Jordan is better, and don't want to hear no more. Of course, we heard LeBron James butt boys in the media, such as Shannon Sharp, the Colin Cowherd, Nick Wright, all argued that LeBron James faced tougher obstacles in his role, saying, "Oh, how he's coming straight out of high school, being called the chosen one, being called Sports Illustrated, all that pressure LeBron James put on himself." By the way, he could have denounced all that pressure and just played his game, but no, he wanted to put that pressure on himself. He wanted to wear 23. He wanted to do the power toss. He wanted to beat MJ. He didn't want to beat MJ. He wanted to replace MJ. He wanted to replace him. So again, that's just another BS narrative that's being propagated right now. It's a fun, interesting story, good laughs, etc. But sometimes you just get sick and tired of the BS propaganda, because it's constant BS being thrown in your face, and you, especially when you know it's BS. It's one thing you don't know that's BS, and you think you're having like a realistic, like an honest dialogue between who's good, but you could just look at it, see it's just a BS narrative just to sell, get clicks, views, etc. It's not even getting good no more. It's obvious that LeBron James is not better than Michael Jordan, but we're gonna continue having these talks for the foreseeable future until LeBron James retire, and then he'll be graded appropriately in the annals of basketball history as one of the top 10 players. Right now, I don't have LeBron James as number 1 or number 2. I don't have LeBron James he'll probably be around 6, like 5, 6, or 7. LeBron James around that area. Right now, I have him at 6. If how his career is going right now, if he makes the playoffs or anything else, he don't win no other title, then he might stay at 6 or slide to 7. But I don't have him no higher than that, because I just seen too many of his failures throughout his career to see him as a top 5 player, let alone the greatest of all time in NBA history. But that's just my opinion on the matter. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. This is Elo Speaks out.
Coming in, yeah, flex. I just wanna win, yeah. LABB, who we running with, yeah. 2, 2, 3, 3, I'm on 10.